Okay, hello everyone. Now we are going to present our study entitled Analysis of Overhead Allocation and Costing Method in MSME, a case study of Get Clean Laundry Express. So, through this presentation, we will explain how manufacturing overhead is allocated and compare different costing methods to determine which method provides the most accurate cost information for the business. Okay, before we begin, let us introduce ourselves. I am Andini Naraswati with my friend Clara Resti Wahyuningsi from the Accounting Department, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Lampung. And now let's move into the presentation. First, let us discuss the background of this study. MSMEs plays a very important role in Indonesia's economic because they contribute significantly to employment and economic growth. However, many MSMEs still face difficulties in determining accurate service costs, especially because manufacturing overhead is often allocated improperly. When overhead costs are allocated inaccurately, businesses may set inappropriate selling prices, earn lower profits, and make poor managerial decisions. For this reason, we selected Get Clean Laundry Express as our case study because this business incurs various operational overhead costs such as electricity, maintenance, rent, and indirect labor, making it suitable for analyzing different overhead allocation methods. Therefore, this study compares several overhead allocation and costing methods to identify which approach provides more accurate cost information. Okay, based on this background, our study addresses four main problems. First, identifying all production cost components. Second, allocating manufacturing overhead using the single rate method and the departmentalization rate method. Third, comparing conventional costing and activity-based costing or ABC. And finally, determining which costing method is the most appropriate for Get Clean Laundry Express. Okay, according the objectives of this research are to identify cost components, analyze overhead allocation methods, compare conventional costing and ABC, and also provide recommendations for the most suitable costing method. Okay, now let's introduce the company. Get Clean Laundry Express is a service-based MSME located in Bandar Lampung. The company provides washing, drying, and steam ironing services with affordable prices starting from 4,000 rupiah per kilogram. Currently, the business operates two branches located in Kampung Baru Unila and Rajabasa Jaya. Its main target market consists of university students and boarding house residents because they frequently require laundry services. And this business was selected because its operation involves several indirect costs that must be allocated properly. Before analyzing the data, we first review several important concepts. The first concept is manufacturing overhead. Manufacturing overhead consists of indirect costs that cannot be directly traced to one specific service. For example, include electricity, depreciation, maintenance, and indirect labor. Proper overhead allocation is important because it improves cost accuracy and helps managers make better pricing decisions. And next, we discuss two costing methods. The first is conventional costing, which allocates overhead using only one cost driver. This method is simple and easy to implement, but sometimes is less accurate. And the second is activity-based costing or ABC. ABC allocates overhead based on the activities that actually consume resources because it uses multiple cost drivers. ABC generally produce more accurate service cost. Okay, next we identified all production cost component. There are three main categories. The first is direct material, which include detergent costing 120,000 rupiah, fabric softener and fragrance costing 320,000 rupiah, and packaging plastic costing 96,000 rupiah. So the total direct material cost is 536,000 rupiah. And the second category is direct labor. The company employs two workers, resulting in a monthly labor cost 2,550,000 rupiah. And the third category is manufacturing overhead, which consists of electricity, internet, rent, and machine maintenance. So the total overhead cost is 1,296,667 rupiah. So overall, the total monthly production cost amounts to 3,832,667 rupiah. And this cost classification is important because it serves as a basis for the overhead allocation analysis. Okay, next we analyze manufacturing overhead allocation. The objective of analysis to compare the single rate method and the departmentalization rate method. So the total manufacturing overhead used in this analysis is 1,296,997 rupiah per month, and several allocation approaches are introduced, namely the direct method, step method, and reciprocal method. So these methods help distribute service department cost into production departments more accuracy. So with that, I will pass the presentation to my friend for the next discussion.
Next, we will talk about overhead allocation analysis. So on this slide, we present the overhead allocation analysis using the single rate method. So the total manufacturing overhead identified from the interview and cost analysis was 1,296,667 rupiah per month. First, using a production volume as the allocation base. The overhead rate was calculated by dividing the total manufacturing overhead by monthly production volume of 1,500 kilograms. So the calculation is 1,296,667 divided by 1,500, resulting in 864.44 rupiah per kilogram. Second, using machine hours as the allocation base. Monthly machine operating hours were calculated as 8 hours per day multiplied by 30 operating days, resulting in 240 machine hours per month. The overhead rate was then calculated as 1,296,667 divided by 240, resulting in 5,402.78 rupiah per machine hours. Third, using direct labor hours as the allocation base. So, two employees work approximately 13 hours per day for 30 days. Therefore, total labor hours equal to multiplied by 13 multiplied by 30, resulting in 780 labor hours. So the overhead rate become resulting in 1,662.39 rupiah per direct labor hour. Fourth, using direct material cost as allocation base. The overhead rate then divided by 536,000 multiplied by 100%, resulting in 241.91% of direct material costs. Finally, using direct labor cost as the allocation base, the overhead rate divided by 2,550,000 and then multiplied by 100%, resulting in 50.85% of direct labor cost. Overall, the single rate method is simple and easy to apply, but it allocates overhead using only one allocation base and does not consider differences between departments. Next, departmentalization rate method. So we applied this. Unlike the single rate method, this approach allocates manufacturing overhead based on departmental resource consumption. The laundry operation was divided into two production departments, namely washing and drying and ironing and packaging. In addition, two service departments were identified: customer service and administration and cashier. Three allocation approach were used. Under direct method, service department costs were allocated directly to production departments without considering service exchange between service departments. So the resulting departmental overhead rates were 867.75 rupiah for washing and drying and 428.92 rupiah for ironing and packaging. Under the step method, one service department were allocated first before allocating the second service department. This produced overhead rates of 868.05 rupiah and 428.62 rupiah respectively. Finally, the reciprocal method recognized multiple services between customer services and department. After solving reciprocal allocation, the departmental rates become 867.39 rupiah for washing and drying and 429.28 rupiah for ironing and packaging. Although the differences are relatively small, the departmentalization rate method provides more accurate cost allocation because costs are assigned according to each department's actual resource usage. Next, we will talk about conventional costing. So after analyzing overhead allocation, we calculate service costs using the conventional costing method. This method allocates all manufacturing overhead using a single cost driver, namely production volume. So the total manufacturing overhead was 1,296,667 rupiah, while monthly production volume was 1,500 kilograms. The overhead rate is calculated as 1,296,667 divided by 1,500, resulting in 864.44 rupiah per kilogram. This means that every kilogram of laundry receives the same amount of overhead allocation regardless of difference in activities performed during the production process. The conventional costing method is practical, simple, and suitable for business with relatively homogeneous services such as laundry by weight operations. Next, we will talk about ABC or activity-based costing system. So, unlike the conventional costing method, ABC allocates costs based on the activity that consume organizational resource. So 5 activity pools were identified. The first activity was depreciation with a cost of 266,667 rupiah. So using 240 machine hours as the cost driver, the activity rate become 1,111.11 rupiah per machine hour. And then the second activity was washing and drying with a cost of 530,000 rupiah. So the activity is divided and resulting in 2,208.33 rupiah per machine hour. And then the third activity was ironing with a cost of 100,000 rupiah. So using 780 direct labor hours, the activity rate become 128.21 rupiah per labor hour. And then the fourth activity was consumer service with a cost of 200,000 rupiah. So using 750 customer orders, the activity rate became 266.67 rupiah per order. And then the last activity was packaging with a cost of 200,000 rupiah. So using the same 750 orders, the activity rate also become 266.67 rupiah per order. Then after determining the activity rates, activity consumption per kilogram was calculated. Machine hours per kilogram equal 240 divided by 1,500, resulting in 0.16 machine hours. And then direct labor hours per kilogram equals 780 divided by 1,500, resulting in 0.52 labor hours. Orders per kilogram equals 750 divided by 1,500, resulting in 0.50 orders. Then multiplying each activity rate by its activity consumption produce the volume cost per kilogram. Depreciation contribute 187.78 rupiah. Washing and drying contribute 353.33 rupiah. Ironing contributed 566.67 rupiah. Customer service contribute 133.34 rupiah, and packaging contribute 133.34 rupiah. So the total ABC overhead cost is therefore 864.46 rupiah per kilogram. That's it. So the recommendation for improvement, the conventional costing method generated an overhead cost of 864.44 rupiah per kilogram, while activity-based costing method generate 864.46 rupiah per kilogram. The difference between the two methods is only 0.02 rupiah per kilogram. This indicates that the current laundry operation is relatively homogeneous, causing both methods to produce nearly identical cost estimates. Therefore, we recommend continuing to use the conventional costing method because it is simple, practical, and efficient for daily operation. However, management should improve cost recording practice and then monitor overhead expense regularly and periodically evaluate service prices. So the study concludes that Get Clean Laundry Express, especially Unilever branch, has three main cost components. There are direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. The analysis showed that overhead allocation using different costing methods produce almost identical results, with only a very small difference of 0.02 rupiah per kilogram between conventional costing and activity-based costing. Therefore, conventional costing is still suitable for current operations, while ABC is more appropriate for future business expansion and more accurate decision making. So, insight and benefits. For students' insight, this study helped understood how costing accounting is implied in MSMEs, and then learn cost classification and costing methods, and finally realize the importance of accurate cost allocation. And benefits for students: improve ability to analyze real cost data, applied accounting theory into practice, and develop teamwork and problem-solving skills. That's it. Thank you so much. Bye.